Mr. Clark, according to Electric Power Resource Institute, data centers in Virginia currently consume 25% of power, and by 2030, the upper end of their estimates suppose 46% of Virginia's power will go to data centers. With all the baseload plant retirements in our neighboring states and in Virginia, how in the world will Virginia power companies be able to retire any dispatchable resources, such as coal plants or natural gas plants, and meet the energy demand of the future?
Mr. Chairman and Congressman, it's an issue I think about often, because when we moved from North Dakota here to the capital area, when I was appointed to FERC, I moved to Loudoun County, and I now reside within a stone's throw of a few substations and a lot of transmission lines. The load center that's being built out in Virginia, and especially Northern Virginia, is tremendous, and it's like unlike anywhere else in the country. The challenge, and I think the answer to that question, to meeting the challenge, is it has to happen at regulatory processes in Richmond and then at FERC, which is there needs to be a very open, transparent record developed to ensure that as resources are brought on to serve this load, that the rate design is done in such a way that customers that benefit from the new resources are the ones who pay for those resources, and there's not inappropriate cross-subsidization from those customers who aren't benefiting from the new resources that are brought on. So it's the sort of nuts and bolts of cost of service rate making that regulators are familiar with doing, but it's going to be very, very high profile because of the amount of dollars that we're talking about.
Right, and while the local folks might want to pay a little bit of it, they shouldn't be carrying the lion's share. Is that what I hear you saying?
It should be, Congressman, exactly. It should be assigned based on beneficiary. And if you don't benefit, or but for your activity you wouldn't benefit from it, then you should.
Now, a big part of that energy consumption is to keep everything cool, isn't that right?
Congressman, that's a big part of it. It's not only running all those processors, but it's the cooling of them as well, especially, well, obviously in the summer in Virginia.
Which has always amazed me why we can't get more of these facilities located in my part of the state, down in Southwest Virginia. Because A, we're a little bit higher altitude, that makes it cooler in the first place. Plus, we have all these abandoned mines. And we have some abandoned coal mines. We also have an abandoned limestone mine. One of those I've been in the limestone mine. It's about 3 to 4 stories high. All kinds of space. It's truly cavernous. It's a man-made cave. And I got a little bill passed a few years ago that if you're using water out of the mine, because it's down in the mine, it doesn't have any life forms in it, so you can avoid the NEPA studies. Just seems to me that would make sense. And of course, we already have baseload generation from fossil fuels, because that's why the coal mines are there. There's also power plants there because it's close to the coal mines. So it just seems to me that it just amazes me. Why do you think people aren't looking at moving the data centers to places where it actually would require less electricity? And I say that because the mines, as you know, but maybe the public doesn't know back home, the mines are naturally cooler because they're underground.
Congressman, it's a great question. It's one that coming from a northern tier state, it's one that I've asked as well. Data center developers will tell me that it's a number of factors, and sometimes they do look at northern areas, either northern areas or places like in Southwest Virginia where you have less cooling needs to site their plants, but it's a complex formula that includes access to telecommunications networks. It includes the embedded cost of energy in that particular region. I think there was just a confluence of events that happened that was anchored in Northern Virginia, right outside the nation's capital, which had a huge telecommunications network in addition to very affordable rates that encouraged that data center alley to grow up where it did. But I think there are opportunities for other parts of the country that offer advantages like the ones that you talked about.
Well, and one of the things I think we have to do is look at our fossil fuels as a base load, because, we're talking about going into this other realm where we use the renewables, and I'm fine with that. But to generate enough electricity to do the data centers that we all want, to have the technology that we all want, and to do other things, we have to continue to look at fossil fuels. And there are ways to do that. We have a company called MOVA that can pull carbon or carbon dioxide, whatever you want to pull out. They're doing it because we put so much pressure on coal. They're not looking at that, although that's what they started off looking at, is looking at coal-fired power plants. They're now doing ammonia out of chicken coops, but they have a flatbed process that works. They're not the only technology in the country, but maybe if we started looking at other ways besides just shutting down our fossil fuel plants, we could provide the electricity for data centers and provide the electricity for the American people that they want and need. I yield back.